everybody, Danny Hogger here. Hope you're having an outstanding week. Thank you so much for checking out our show. Are you looking for new and engaging ways to get your students up and moving in the classroom? Get out of the sit and get rut of teaching by checking out ampeduplearning.com, a teacher-owned and operated company in Texas that is looking to gamify teaching with creative new activities for the classroom. From their FREC resources and escape rooms for social studies and science to speed squares and task cards for math and English, they have tons of teacher-created resources. So many good things up there. And don't forget to check out their apparel designed specifically for teachers. Look good and support teachers. That's something I can get behind. Use code HoggerHistory10 to save 10% on all items, and follow them on social media at Amped Up Learning for their monthly giveaways of Amazon gift cards, lessons, and apparel. Man, supporting teachers while also supporting teachers, that sounds like something we could really get behind. And don't forget to use that code HoggerHistory10 to save 10% on all items at ampeduplearning.com. What a great way to start. Now let's move on to the show. Thank you so much for supporting Inspiring Teachers.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers, a show bringing you classroom tips, motivation, and stories from successful educators. Join Tavis Beam and Danny Hogger as they explore the why of teaching.
And welcome into Inspiring Teachers. I'm Danny Hogger. I hope you're doing great and coming through the end of our summer and rolling into the start of spring. Wait, I did one of those seasons wrong. Welcome to the show. I'm Danny Hogger, Tavis Beam alongside as always. How you doing, Tavis?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Danny?
I'm good. This double monitor thing is better and worse at the same time.
It's a whole new skill set.
Yeah, it's a whole new skill set. And joining us to talk about new skill sets and how to make Zoom feel more like a community organized classroom. One of those syllables was also extra, but she does a lot extra in her teaching. Emily Ice is here. Emily, how you doing?
It's great to be here. This is quite exciting.
Especially when I can make 3 mistakes in the open. That's good.
You.
Well, this is crazy too, because you can't see what I'm seeing anymore, but I have double monitors and you're on both of them. This is like twice the Emily. You are a twin though, which is our first fun fact of the day. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm stepping into the classroom tomorrow. This won't air for a couple of weeks. I know we're all working on new plans for the new semester of distance learning. Emily, what are you approaching this semester differently than last when it kind of was sprung upon us all new? What's your goal for this new term?
Well, I think the big difference is that we've had time to think about it all over the summer and I guess get excited about it. And I think there are a lot of things to be excited about with remote learning. I think it provides a lot of opportunities for students. And I know for me, it's been really fun just to see how the students can kind of make it their own and drive their own learning. And, you know, that push towards visible learning and self-directed learning has been something the education world has been going for a long time. So this could be an excellent segue to that.
It could be. One of the things I've always admired about you is you're always eager to jump in and instead of regretting the situation, looking for ways to optimize it. So what have you been doing, spending your time on this summer and research that you think could help other teachers?
So I was running a virtual summer camp, which was a great way to kind of explore all of the fun sides of remote learning. And I did a deep dive into YouTube, and I can assure you that there are hours upon hours of activities that students will love to do using all sorts of online resources. And I, again, really use those to my advantage to get kids engaged during the summer. And so, as you can imagine, there's a lot of other things that kids could be doing than be on Zoom with their teacher.
Can you give us an example of what some of those activities look like?
Yeah, I was super impressed at how excited they were to come on. So the first one and I'll have to say that I also practiced these all with my grandmother in her independent living center, so it's also wonderful for the elderly crowd that is quarantined inside their nursing homes. But one of them was Guess That Sound, which I found I was quite talented at. But basically, you hear the sound of an animal, or you hear the sound of a shower going, or a lawnmower going by, or whatever it is, and then all the kids listen and try and guess. We did it through the chat feature, but you can also have kids just call out their answers. And there's different themes to them. So there's ones that are just classroom based. all of the kids know the sound of a clicking pen. But some of them were incredibly challenging that you're like, I know that sound, but where did it come from?
I love radio, so that's a fun one to start with. And by the way, I made you a co-host, so if you want to screen share anything, if you go to any websites or anything, that's an option. Cool. So that's a good one. What other ones do you think are fun? Good, maybe these sound like good early days ones too. Kind of.
I am elementary, so but I think these could work for any age.
I would give it a shot. In high school,
Spot It is one of my favorite board games, if you're familiar with it. But the idea of on YouTube, it's more called I Spy. But you just basically have a screen full of objects, and then find the object that starts with S, and in a variety of pictures, you have to find the sock or the snake or whatever it is hidden. But again, there's ones where children tend to be way better than adults at just focusing in on the details. So I was really impressed at how quickly some of the kids could come up with, that's the object you're talking about. A similar one is hidden objects, where it's a picture of a landscape or a crowded room, and then there's a hidden animal or a hidden object somewhere in the photo, kind of like Where's Waldo.
Nice.
Again, kids can be much better at it than adults, so it really gives them that sense of mastery and success, especially when there's enough technology challenges and other things that they might not feel super successful at. They can be the first one to spot it. Another similar one is Spot the Difference, where I was doing a lot from TV shows. Trolls movie just came out, so there's a lot of versions where it's one scene from the Trolls movie and then another scene that's been slightly edited, and then they have to try and spot the three differences or and most of these are on timers, so there's a limited amount of time on the screen for them to pop up and say what it is. But again, just it's all skills that anyone could do. So it's really just easing kids into the school day. So I typically did this at the beginning of the day, and there's always that awkward time between when some kids are logged in, some kids aren't logged in,
nice.
And you're kind of waiting and trying to start, but you can't really do anything academic yet. And so I would have these playing as soon as the kids logged on, and they would call out as they go. And then as soon as everyone's on, that's when I would do the good morning, introduce yourself, and start the lesson. But you're pretty much guaranteed to have a window of some amount of awkward time, just as everyone kind of troubleshoots their morning issues.
Story of my life.
And so you found these online already created, or did you create these yourself?
Yeah, so I should give a shout out to all these different YouTube creators that have them. But basically, and it's actually, again, it's student ideas. So, once I came up with one, the students went on their own little wormholes of figuring out which other games and which other creators they liked best. And so, I kind of had the ideas, and then they, would find them and post them as well. And
That's
then,
cool.
YouTube automatically generates, and 3, 2, 1, you're going on to the next one. And then, they all want to stay on and do the next video too.
Oh, and I'm thinking about how I could incorporate this with the actual content that I'm teaching as well. So, I teach Woodshop, so just tool identification and
nice.
Different varieties of wood. I could definitely see something like that would be a great engagement strategy / using the things that they're supposed to be learning about too.
Well, the fun one for that, I was just thinking, is the zoomed in ones where it's and again, this is just what I when I search on YouTube, but there's pictures where it's zoomed in on an object, so it's like a zoomed in picture of Snow White, and then you have to try and guess which character it is. But you could do a zoomed in picture of a piece of wood or a piece of furniture, and then they have to guess what kind of furniture it is that was built. And again, it's all, you could do it for any theme. It could be, for second grade, it's all about textures and solids, liquids, and gases. So you could do a zoomed in picture of a balloon and then ask what the properties of the object were. There's a variety of them out there, but just, even with your own camera, you can make some yourself.
Yeah, that sounds really fun. You gave me an idea too, since you said some of the ideas came from your students. Maybe a good first week or second week assignment might be to have, depending on the age of the student, them search for more ideas and submit them in a document or a chat box, and that replenishes your list of options to keep things fresh through the year, since they know what they like sometimes more than we do.
Right, rather than you making 40 of them, have the students make 40 of them for you.
That's always an idea that I would come to after making 40 of them. Like after I made 35 Zoom links, realizing that the recurring meeting was a feature and that you could choose a drop down this morning that says no set time, and then it works anytime. Like, oh, great.
There you go.
Good.
Well, Emily, that just made me think of the scavenger hunts too is one of the big ones that, each morning they'd have a list of 3 things that were going to be on the scavenger hunt. But you could definitely change that up too. Instead of just finding the object, taking a picture of it in a zoomed up way and having them guess what the object was afterwards. You can really change up your scavenger hunts that way.
Solid.
So just how you share it.
One of the things that I know about you from working together for 2 years is that you were the best systematic teacher I've ever seen, to the point where like students are shaking hands in and out of the room, going to a specific spot, knowing almost minute to minute, right, what's going to happen next. With them being at home on their monitors, how are you going to maintain like a positive system? What are your plans for that might be good ideas for our teacher audience?
I love that you said systematic, because I definitely do have a plan, and it's largely built around my website. So I created a website where it's very much independent, like students will be able to kind of move around on their own in it, and my hope is like to create as many mini lessons as possible, so that if they do miss instruction or we end up going back and forth in the classroom or remote or in person, whatever the situation might be throughout the year, that they can kind of have the website be the anchor back to rewatching anything. And for my own sake, keeping myself organized as well, having different tabs on the website and having each curriculum kind of mapped out on its own page allows you to go back and forth much easier. But I think that is the greatest challenge for teachers right now, is that you're trying to create schedules and plans without actually having much of a head start on any of it. So it's all with, a caveat of, I hope this plan works, but I don't know.
You brought up something before we started that hadn't occurred to me, in that some teachers are going to be assuming we've been planning for 4 months. And some of us have only had our interface or our learning management system for 4 days or less. And that's something to keep in mind, I think, as I approach communication with students and parents. What are your ideas, or what are you thinking on those roads?
Well, yeah, so I was thinking just that whole back to school night concept, that you usually go into back to school night with a clear plan of what you want to communicate out to everybody. And this year kind of challenges that, in the sense that, you don't necessarily know what you're communicating out, other than you're trying to be as transparent as possible. And I actually stole from Peloton the idea of grit and grace. Is my class slogan for the year.
Now we're getting sued, but thank you. Or but, getting Pelotons. I don't know, one way or the other. It worked
out really well. But yeah, I think just like really reiterating that to the parents, that that there's just going to be a lot of times this year where we just have to keep going and having faith in the system, but then also grace, in the sense of don't be too hard on yourself. Don't be too hard on anybody around you, right. Because we're
all building this airplane as we're falling.
Exactly. So I think it'll be an interesting time to communicate out. But I will say that I'm definitely a big believer in the invest in those positive emails early on in the school year, and building in that positive relationship, not only with just the students, but with the parents and families as well, and your coworkers. Like, I think you're just going to have to rely on your coworkers so much more than usual, that this is definitely the year to start off strong with a lot of individual emails and a lot of pictures and positive messaging out.
I like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, for those of us that teach middle and high, we're talking about, 200 plus students. Just even getting their names is going to be a challenge, let alone developing any kind of relationship with them over Zoom.
Well, what I'm hoping is that having recorded a video about myself that I can play for every class, they'll at least know me day one. Then the question turns to Emily, and it's, how can we handle the calling on students, the getting to know them, the seeing their face and having them speak? Do you have any plans for that? Are they icebreakers that you're going to be doing? How will you be getting to know your class? Maybe Tavis and I and our audience can take some ideas from that.
I think that is a good question. And like I said, I think the scavenger hunts is an easy way to kind of just get a look into your students' lives. But I also, again, would say push back to the students and let them share their ideas. I know I got a really positive response every time I asked students come up with their own ideas for an activity for what their friends should do if they're bored. And they would come up with all sorts of crazy ideas of what they were doing, or show off their newest cookbook, or show off like what, skill they just learned on TikTok. And they're super excited to kind of share what they have been doing at home. Now, I know younger students tend to be a little bit more open and eager about all of that. But I think it is something where if the kids have the ownership of it, then they're much more likely to join in than if they're being told they have to do something.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm going to share my screen for just a second and show you this. So you've seen my first day survey?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, I see it.
So while they're listening to me talk about myself, so I don't want it to seem too about me-ish, here are some questions that I think could be good for us in the upper classes, or probably for any grade level. It's available on Amped Up Learning, I'm pretty sure. It's an idea that I will read these, and these won't go to the class. They'll just be shared with me. I'm not going to embarrass them to read out anything, but some favorite things, what you want to learn more about the class, why do we study history, biggest problem in the world today, kind of get some glimpse into their worldview, something that makes you hopeful so it's not just negative. If you weren't here, what would you want to be doing? How can I help you be successful? That's a good chance to learn about. It's usually don't sit me in the front or don't sit me in the back, but maybe we'll get more of like, don't give us too much homework. I don't know, but I'll know tomorrow when I give this to them. Yeah. Interests, books, hobbies, and anything that you'd like me to know about you. And then I'll take an hour or two for each class and try to read it and try to commit it to name. Like David said, I'm not going to pick them up for the first few weeks. It's going to take me a while, and probably longer now than before, but I got to give them an opportunity. And then one other thing I like to do on day one is set goals for the year, short term, middle, and long, and to tell them how much that's meant to me personally. And at least that way we've got some idea that I want you to succeed. Now you know all about me. I'm looking forward to reading about you. And at least it's the reach out for the embrace digitally through Classroom that it's worked well in physical rooms. So I'm hoping it'll still work digitally.
That reminds me, one of the things I did, we had a moving up day. So all of the kids, met their teacher back the last day of school via Zoom. And I did a VideoAsk survey. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it's basically you make short videos of like, what are you most excited about, or what do you want me to know about you? And it pops up as a little video on their screen, and then they can respond via video. And so, like you said, with more students in middle school, it's harder to commit face to name and everything. And so that, just hearing their actual voices, and it takes away a little bit of the trepidation as well. Because they just kind of speak off the cuff rather than trying to type it all up.
Sounds like a good plan. So does FlipGrid, which is essentially the same thing. Lets them respond with videos. I'm going to try it. I got to try it in the first week. You know how sometimes you want to do things, but if you don't get them started at the beginning, you just never find the time to implement. So I'm hoping that these ideas might be good for teachers.
Well, and one of the things I'll say about FlipGrid and a lot of these other platforms is they do have educator badges and licenses that teachers can put on their profiles. And so I know FlipGrid is one of the ones that has like a FlipGrid educator certification. Google Educator has one, Microsoft Innovative, Seesaw has a Seesaw Pioneer, and so teachers can move up the levels to become ambassadors in all of these different platforms.
And that's a great point. I also think it's another one that teachers can create accounts and students don't have to. They can just use join codes, and trying to minimize the login activity. It's probably a good idea, at least for the beginning of the year. Tavis, any thoughts about maybe you could do something like that in Woodshop somehow?
Yeah, absolutely. There's one program that I really used a lot, and it's escaping me right now, of course. And that is where you can actually download YouTube videos onto their platform and then insert questions. So the video will pause.
What was that?
I can't.
EdPuzzle.
EdPuzzle, there it is. Yeah.
EdPuzzle Coach. It's one of the ones you can get a badge into.
It is such a fantastic program because it holds the students accountable for watching the entirety of the video, and it really, connects what you're trying to teach to the video as well. That's just I found very valuable.
Good. I'm going to put that in the description too with some of the other ideas. Anything else that striking to you right now, Emily, that you think other teachers might get a kick out of investing a little time in before we start the year?
I would just go back to gratitude. I think is a good way to end it all. Is that I think there's going to be so anxiety around the school year that I think really building into your time with students just ways of being more mindful. And so there's just a couple that I found that were really beneficial. Like we had online Hangman where I would share the screen, but instead of just doing a word about the whatever topic we're learning about, I said it was always going to be something that I was grateful for the day. And so then they're getting excited to play Hangman, but then at the end of when they finally guess what I'm grateful for, then we would stop and do 5 deep breaths of gratitude and then have everybody share what they were grateful for. There's another one that's I called a gratitude generator, and basically it's like a flashing screen of words, and then you tell the kids to screenshot at any moment, and then whatever question or word comes up on the screen they have to respond to. And so a lot of times it would be like something like, what makes you smile, or what was the most exciting thing that happened today. But just the act of doing the screenshot got the kids way more excited to have that conversation, and it wasn't just I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my house.
Cool.
It really changed that up. So I think just ending the day with some kind of sense of like you've done a really good job, and at the end of being on a screen all day, it can feel exhausting. So I think really making sure to end all your time with students with something that kind of gets them excited that
that sounds
and thankful to be that they had this time together.
Yeah, you want them to want to come back tomorrow. Exactly. that was fun. I want more of that.
Mm-hmm. What's the name of the online Hangman, Emily, that you mentioned? And I'll post that in the description because I want to do that exactly the way you described. And that's what we hope is the point of the show, too, that you get things like that, outcomes that you can actually use. That sounds really positive, especially being a history teacher, going into an election, teaching government, too. I want to make sure that we're keeping things uplifting and positive where we can and looking at multiple sides of things. So that I like the gratitude idea. And that's something in high school they probably haven't seen in a few years, maybe. So that's really cool to bright side that back again. Tavis, you have anything else that you're going into at this moment? I know you have a lot of questions that you're answering at this time, right?
Yeah, I'm still kind of up in the air on how a lot of my classes will be working as a woodshop teacher. I feel like I've got a better handle on how to work with some of my older students, my advanced students, but so much of what I do is hands-on, and it's about that hands-on experience that I just don't see how I'm going to translate. I can teach them technical ideas, I can teach them all about the different types of tools, but I'm really seeing, the problem with doing online learning is just that in-person, hands-on experience of the best of what education can be, in my humble opinion. So I'm still on the journey of figuring that part out. I want this to be meaningful to my students, even if they are at home. But I'm not going to say, hey, go to your garage and find your skill saw and start cutting up wood. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
I was gonna say, a lot of people have gotten into home improvement though during this whole quarantine process. So I think the interest is more than ever.
Yeah, and so I can share that with my students. So my own passion for that.
Can you EdPuzzle some of those life hack videos and have them make hand sanitizer? Chemicals are a question mark, but some kinds of things that maybe they can make around the house that can help during the time, or
Well, I don't just teach woodshop, I also teach like technology and makers. So I was thinking like have them design their own like face masks and PPE and use inspiration from things that they enjoy, like TV shows or whatnot. It's like, I want you to make a face mask that's also an Iron Man mask, or something that's going to inspire you.
Yeah, maybe you can even get into, those are fun ideas and pertinent to the time. Maybe you could do code.org and maybe find some online programming stuff that they can do as well.
Well, one really neat thing is the online platform of TinkerCad, and they can design three-dimensional objects, and then they can send me the STL file and I can print it for them. And then one day when they actually come back to the campus, that little object that they've created will be there for them, or maybe they can pick it up some way. But yeah, it's about reinventing the wheel a lot. And I liked what you had to say about grace, just going into it, being, arms and heart open to the students, like, look, we're all figuring this out. And even though there is a sense of uncertainty, I'm going to bring a sense of calm to the classroom as well, and not try to get flustered and not become overly dramatic and caught up in the idea of everything having to be perfect. If we can give ourselves that grace, then I think that the students will also have some sense of that grace as well.
At least in our classes. And that's what I'm hoping too,
Right.
because the whole world is getting put into situations that aren't ideal. And we're right in the middle of that. But if we come into class with that fire on our mind that we're not in a situation we want to be, how is that going to optimize the chance that they're going to enjoy or learn if they... Yeah. So it's more important than it was before to come in grateful, happy, encouraged, and for them to know that we want them to take something out of the class, like you're saying. So I think we've shared a lot of good ideas. Does anyone have anything else that they want to mention before we go?
This has been great.
Cool. I think this is helpful. It won't be officially released for a few weeks, but when items like this are really relevant, I'll start pushing it out and make it unlisted, but we can share this link out now because teachers need this information today. So, Tavis, thanks for joining us from your house.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it as always.
Thank you for having me. And helping me get this nice microphone set up too.
Hey, there you go. We do what we can. Don't forget to support our show by liking, sharing, and subscribing, whether that's on Podbean or on YouTube. And Emily, thank you so much for joining us. Is there any place that you have resources, or do you want them to send us questions if they have questions?
They can send you questions, and I'll send you that link.
Great. That'll be down in the description below. Thanks for joining us and giving us so many cool ideas and tools and tips. Oh, I wasn't done yet. I thought you'd say yeah, you're welcome. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us on Inspiring Teachers. I know I didn't really give you a lead. I just thought you'd feel it, but this is what we have to do for our students too, and make sure we're very explicit about what we expect. That's our final tip for the day. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you on the next edition, and bye.